What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Mr. Plays, and today I'm going to be doing a tier list for Marvel Contest of Champions, in which I rank every champion in the entire game into different tiers based on how good they are, what content they can clear, their utility, their damage, all that great stuff. And so I already have this set tier list. Right now we got the cheat codes, the best in the game. The only two cheat codes, of course, are Quake and Ghost, Quake being the best in the entire game. Then we got our overpowered characters, Beyond Gods, Gods, good champions, average, bad, terrible, and then the memes of the game. So let's get right into this. So here every month I update this tier list. I talk about the buffed champions, I talk about the new champions added into the game, and I also change around some stuff that I feel like needs to be changed just based on what I've seen recently and how I feel differently about champions. So first off, let's talk about the new characters. So the first new character I want to talk about is SpiderMan 2099. And he is going to be going in the good category. So when this guy got announced, I was really excited. He was a really cool champion. I thought he was going to be really good. His notes came out and they looked pretty nice. But then the problem was when people started doing gameplay with him, he just wasn't as spicy as he seemed like on paper. So his whole thing is he gets a ton of debuffs on the opponent, and then you try and throw your special 2 to do a burst of damage for every debuff on the opponent. So he's got this nice piece of utility where he cannot gain buffs, and so whenever he would gain a buff, he pauses his personal debuff for 5 seconds. So first of all, this might seem like a bad thing, not being able to gain buffs, but this is really helpful for so many different places in the game. For example, Buffet, where they regen every time you get a buff, or one of the Summer of Pain bosses, Symbiote Supreme, where just you'd get placebo buffs, and then they would just do he would just do a ton of damage to you by nullifying those buffs. So stuff like that. This is a really nice mechanic to have. And then while dodging backward, you can't be struck. And so dodging attack this way will also trigger your debuff pausing ability. So he's similar to Nightcrawler, where even if you don't have the dexterity mastery, you can still dash back, and that you still can't get hit, which is nice. And also you can get 75% damage resistance if the opponent is under the effect of a true strike, or if the hit deals true damage. So that's a lot of damage resistance. That means you're only taking 25% damage. So you really don't want, it's more a defensive mechanic where you don't want to use a true strike champion or someone who does true damage. And then also, he can inflict ruptures up to 20 stacks, and so light and medium attacks have a 25% chance to inflict a rupture, which deals 750 physical damage over 10 seconds. And this has a 100% chance to inflict rupture on a block if the opponent is suffering from a wither. And then also, the opponent will take a burst of about 1100 physical damage for each rupture on them if they reach 0 power or whenever they gain a bar of power. And so also that consumes the ruptures when this happens. So this is nice. You can just stack up a few ruptures on the opponent and then push them over a bar of power, or make them go straight down to 0 power, maybe with your wither or something. And then you can just do a bunch of damage, which is really nice. But it's not the most damage in the entire game. And then also his heavies will inflict an exhaustion, which reduces their critical damage rating, but also reduces the potency of their power gain effects by 15% for 15 seconds. You can stack up to 5 of these, so that's 75% power gain resistance, so they're gaining 75% less power, which is really nice. And then also he's got this interesting resistance up sort of mechanic, where you can stack up to 100 of these, and when you're attacked, you have a 100% chance to gain an indefinite resistant up passive, which increases physical resistance and energy resistance by about 90. And then interrupting Spider-Man 2099 while he's charging a heavy will remove all of his resistance up stacks, and if at least 20 stacks are removed this way, he will inflict a wither debuff, which reduces ability power rate by 125% for 20 seconds. And then whenever he pauses his personal debuffs, he consumes 5 stacks of those resistance up, and increases the pause duration by 5 seconds. So you can also, instead of pausing the personal debuffs for only 5 seconds, you can pause them for 10, which is really nice, but this has a 10-second cooldown. But this is so it's mainly a defensive mechanic, so it'll take less damage, but it's also offensive so that you can pause the debuffs for even longer. Then specials is Special Attack 1. The last 3 hits will each have a 100% chance to inflict a physical vulnerability debuff, which reduces their physical resistance. And also, you gain 15 stacks of resistance up, which is what we just talked about, so you can then dump those to pause your debuffs for even longer. His special 2 will inflict a wither, which reduces ability power rate by 125% for 15 seconds. So you have this plus the all 5 exhaustions. That's 200% ability power rate reduction, which is a 100% reversal, which is really good. But the problem is it's really hard to get into all of that. And also, each hit will deal a burst of about 1400 physical damage per unique debuff on the opponent. Then finally, his special 3 inflicts a stun for 4 seconds and inflicts a slow lasting 25 seconds. So that means they can't go unstoppable or evade. It reduces the ability accuracy of those things by 100%, so pretty much no one can do it. And it prevents the effects of unstoppable. And also, he can't do this against skilled champions, but also the slow counts as 4 unique debuffs, so you can do even more damage with the special 2. But the weird thing about the special 3 is it inflicts a stun for 4 seconds, which seems good, but actually isn't, because his whole thing is you need to dex a lot. You need to be able to dex to pause your debuffs. But if they're stunned, you can't dex anything. You can't get any buffs unless you're on some interesting node. So you really can't do anything while they're just stunned, and your debuffs are just expiring. And then you won't be able to do as much damage with the special 2. And finally, his Sig ability, Ruptures have up to an 80% chance to not be consumed when you do the burst, which is really nice. So you can maybe even stack up to all 20 of these, and then you can actually get a bunch of damage whenever they burst. And then also, you can get up to 25% combat power rate while the opponents are affected with the Wither debuff. So that's some nice extra combat power rate, but again, nothing too spicy. And so Spider-Man 2099, I feel like he's got some decent damage, some okay utility with the slow. He's got the good utility without being able to gain buffs. But his power gain seems pretty good, but so hard to get in that reversal. You need to work all the way up to a special 2 and you have to throw a few heavy attacks and then work your way up to a special 2. And if you're going against someone who's just getting tons of power gain, it won't make too much of a difference, especially early on in the fight. So I feel like he's got some nice utility, and then he's also got some okay damage, but nothing too crazy. But I feel like he still is just at least a good champion. Okay, so next up, we have Penny Parker. And so Penny Parker will be moved all the way up to Beyond God. So I'm not moving her straight up to overpowered yet, because I just feel like she's not at the same level as, all these champions up here. But I feel like Beyond God tier is the right category to put her in right now. Although definitely I could see her moving up if there's really impressive gameplay over the next month or two. And so Penny Parker, really cool champion, love the animations, love the design. And so her whole ability, so she's got this SPDR suit, which makes her immune to poison and incinerate, which is really cool. So that's some nice immunities right there. And then opponents also suffer minus 100% True Strike, True Accuracy, and True Sense effect ability accuracy. So that means when she auto-blocks, you really can't get around it. And then when the opponent fills a bar of power, you'll gain a Spider Sense charge, which goes up to 10 charges, and any additional charges will last for 22 seconds. But these charges can't be prevented by ability accuracy, which is nice. And also, you got this Sync Shield, where you start the fight with an active Sync Shield, and this max strength is based on her opponent's attack rating, and this is not affected by class advantage at all, which is nice. And then while fighting as a defender, the max strength is increased by 100%. So whenever Penny Parker would take damage from a blocked or auto-blocked hit, the Sync Shield takes up to 100% of the damage instead. And then when the Sync Shield runs out of strength, it will go on cooldown for 20 seconds, after which it will reactivate at max strength. So this is just a nice little fallback thing in case you accidentally maybe miss a parry or something. It can just auto-block for you, and also can take some of the damage, which is nice. And while it's active, you have the Spider Protocol, so whenever you would be struck, you have a 8% chance per Spider Sense charge to consume 4 of those charges, which purify any stun debuffs and gain a 100% chance to auto-block for 2 seconds. This doesn't trigger parry, so you can't, parry off of that, but still really nice. Whenever you would auto-block a hit, you power burn 25% of a bar of power and inflict direct damage onto the opponent, and then this also can't be prevented by ability accuracy, so that's really nice. You also can power burn the opponent with the auto-blocks. And then when blocking or auto-blocking a hit, you can't be stunned, and you also lock the opponent's power, which is cool. So that means kinetic transference doesn't really work too well here, which is nice. Because if they're hitting your block, you're locking the opponent's power, which is nice. And also it's good against Apocalypse, because if he has his 4 charges, his light attacks into the block will stun you, but she'll be stun immune, so that's great. And when you would be struck by a heavy hit while auto-blocking, you'll have a 100% chance to resist that, which is good. And then whenever parrying, you gain 6% of a bar of power, so that's some nice power right there. Then a special one, if you have at least 11 Spider Sense charges, it will inflict a power burn debuff during the special attack, burning 75% of a bar of power. And after activation, you gain 4 Spider Sense charges. And if the opponent feels a bar of power during this special attack, you gain plus 3 bonus Spider Sense charges. And the first hit won't grant power and burns 25% of a bar of power. So what you really want to do here is you push them just over a bar of power, because also every time they fill a bar of power, you will get the Spider Sense charge. So you want to do is just fill them just above a bar of power, throw the special one, that brings them underneath the bar of power, and it will also push them again over a bar of power, so you can get a ton of Spider Sense charges there. And then her special 2, you pause the duration of all Spider Sense charges until the special ends. And each web shooter hit, which is there's a lot of them, will deal a burst of 450 incinerate damage for each Spider Sense charge. So if you can establish like 20 charges, that's a ton of damage. And then if you have 8 or more Spider Sense charges, the last hit consumes all those charges, but inflicts a beefy incinerate each per charge, which each deals about 5,000 energy damage. And so this removes perfect block chance and even lowers their block proficiency, which is nice. So she's just a really good champion. Finally, special 3 inflicts a power burn, burning 150% of a bar of power. And if the shield's on cooldown, it will be restored. And then you also add a flat 50% to the Sync shield's current strength. So you can get up to 200% strength, but that's not too much. That doesn't really help out too much. Finally, Sig ability. Whenever the opponent fills a bar of power or recovers more than 5% of max health at once, you will inflict a passive heal block, which prevents the opponent from healing for 2 to 6 seconds. And whenever the opponent heals while heal blocked, you'll deal 5 to 15% of the health they would have gained as a burst of incinerate damage. So that's really nice. And also, if the Salve Mastery is active, that mastery is removed, which is cool. Good for Alliance War. So this makes her insane for Nick Fury, because right as he dies of the first life, he'll try and regen all the way up, but she'll just heal block him and take him down. So that's some really nice bit of utility there, but it's not effective in too many different scenarios, but it's still a nice thing to have. So Penny Parker, she's just got a pretty good amount of utility, a lot of damage, big incinerates, big burst damage. She's just a really fun champion to play with, and she just seems like a lot of fun, really good champion that belongs in the Beyond God tier category. So now let's talk about the buff champions. So first off, let's talk about Gamora. So Gamora, I'm going to be taking her and moving her up from average to God. So Gamora, this buff, and they released the buff notes for her, and I have a 6-star Gamora, and I wasn't really impressed that much. Because, so Gamora's whole thing is, her different attacks. So light attacks, they have a 35% chance to gain a Fury for 9 seconds. Mediums have a 35% chance to gain a Cruelty for 9 seconds. And then, also, your personal buffs gain 1.5% extra duration for every second that have passed during the fight, which can go up to 60%. And if you have 10 or more personal buffs active, her attacks can't miss. So that's some pretty nice bit of utility. If you race up to 10 personal buffs, then you can't miss. But the only thing is, most scenarios, you're going to be missing the opponent, and you're not going to have enough time to get up to 10 buffs. So it's not too good. But then her heavy attacks will refresh the duration of all personal buffs. So pretty much, her whole thing is you want to get in a few combos, and you want to get as many heavy attacks as you can, so you can refresh those buffs. And then pretty much her special attacks, so you begin each fight with a God Slayer Strike Ready, which has a 65% chance to activate during each special. And once it is used, it goes on cooldown for 100 seconds. But if you have her Awakened, pretty much it increases the chance to activate during specials to 100%, and then you can also, the cooldown is only 50 to 20 seconds, so you can use it. You really want her to be Awakened to get that even bigger damage with the God Slayer Strike. And so special 1, 100% crit chance, and then it will inflict a bleed. And also, if it's God Slayer, then it gains a flat 600% critical damage multiplier, so a lot of crit damage there. Special 2, again, 100% crit chance. He has an 80% chance to inflict an armor break debuff. And then if it's a God Slayer strike, then armor break debuffs gain 50% potency, 60% duration, and 150% ability accuracy. So you're inflicting those armor breaks, and there's some pretty good armor breaks. Finally, special 3 will give you a true strike buff, which allows her to ignore armor, resistances, auto block, and evade. And if you have Godslayer, you'll inflict a shock over 10 seconds. But if it's a robot, it inflicts degeneration. That deals double damage instead. But you're never really using the special 3 because it takes forever to get up to it. So only a 9-second True Strike isn't really doing anything. And the shock, it's some nice damage, but you're much better off going with the special 2 to get those armor breaks. So Gamora, I feel like she's a champion. A lot of damage if you can play her correctly, but in most scenarios, you're not able to throw as any heavy attacks as you really need to. And she also got a tiny bit of utility, but most of her utility it doesn't even really make it too much of a difference because it's just so hard to build up that utility. So Gamora, I feel like she's a good champion, but the buff didn't really give her enough to put her over the top to put her into God or Beyond God category. So the next buff this month was Miles Morales. Spider-Man Miles Morales. So I'm going to be taking Miles, and I'll be moving him all the way up the tier list into the God category. So I feel like also he's another champion that I could see moving up to Beyond God later, but I haven't seen as much insane gameplay as I would need to put him up there. But his whole thing revolves around his spider challenges. So pretty much he has to complete a bunch of spider challenges before he can do each fight. And then pretty much you complete a spider challenge, you gain an indefinite spider sense charge, which you can have a max of 3 charges. Then each spider sense charge grants a passive 7% chance to evade incoming attacks, as well as some extra attack. And so these different charges are block 15 attacks, land 50 hits, and avoid 10 attacks with dex, evade, or miss. But if you parry, it counts as 3 blocked hits. If you intercept, it counts as 10 hits. And also special attacks, dexes count as 2 hits each, or 2 dexes each. So if you're a skilled player, you can get these even faster, which is nice. And also on parries, he won't attempt to utilize his evade or miss, which is nice, because before it was really annoying because you try and parry and then you would evade and then you get slapped right in the face. But that's a nice little thing they added, so whenever you're parrying, he won't attempt his evade or trying to miss. Then each time the opponent launches a special attack, you get a spider camo passive, and then this grants all attacks a 35% chance to miss, but that is tripled against unblockable attacks. And this also will give different effects to his specials. And once you complete all 3 spider challenges, you're in the zone for the rest of the fight. And then this means that your spider camera will also activate each time Miles launches a special. And then so heavy attacks will inflict a taunt for 10 seconds. And then if you have the spider camera active, it will also inflict a rupture, dealing some nice damage. Special 1, last hit has 100% chance to inflict a weakness, and if you have the spider camo, you get some extra duration on that. Special 2, final hit has 100% chance to inflict a shock, causing 6,500 energy damage. And this shock gains 30% potency for each unique personal debuff that has been activated on the opponent during the fight. So if you get a lot of debuffs on the opponent during the fight, you can get this big shock damage. Special 3 will inflict a physical vulnerability debuff. And then also if you have the spider camo active, you will inflict a really long power sting. And they will take a bunch of damage if they activate a special. And finally, his awakened ability, you can complete spider challenges multiple times each fight instead of just once. But each spider challenge will still only grant 1 spider sense charge. And every time you complete a spider challenge, you gain a passive fury, increasing your attack by 1,500 to 4,000 for 12 seconds. So his whole game style of gameplay is you want to get as many debuffs on the opponent. You want to complete those challenges quickly so you can become in the zone, and then you can just get the taunt, the rupture, throw the special 1 to get the weaknesses, maybe you can throw the special 3 to get the power sting and physical vulnerability. Even if they go away, it still will increase your shock damage. And then finally throw the special 2 with your spider camo active, and then it can just inflict a really big shock. So that's really nice. And also, so Spider-Man Miles Morales, this buff, I feel like it was a really good buff. It gave him a lot more damage. Also, he's insane for the Abyss, because in the Abyss, they go unblockable and unstoppable after you use up your max hits. But he has a 115% chance to, or 105% chance to evade all special, 105% chance to evade all miss all unblockable attacks when he has the spider camo active. So if you can get in the zone, then they go on fully unblockable and unstoppable. You can just keep attacking them, and they can't hit you at all. And then they just keep throwing their specials, and then maybe occasionally you'll throw a special, and then you're just chilling the entire fight. And so he's really good for the Abyss because of that. But also Spider-Man, Miles Morales, even outside the Abyss, he's got some nice damage. You really want him awakened at a pretty decent sig, so you can get those Furies to increase his damage. But I feel like he doesn't have a ton of utility, that's his only thing. But he's still got some nice utility, he can inflict a lot of debuffs, stuff like that. So I feel like he deserves this God tier ranking. So now, finally, I'm going to be taking champions and moving them around based off of what I've seen recently. So first off, let's take MODOK, move him into bad. So I think I sort of had a soft spot for this character. He's one of my first 4-stars I ranked up a long time ago. But he's not really good at all. He's really good on defense with his whole annoying auto block mechanic. But all he does is his heavy attack you can inflict some incinerate. His specials don't really, his special 1 reverses all healing during this special attack, but that's not really that great unless you time it perfectly, and it's not that good in many scenarios. So MODOK, I don't think he's that good of a champion at all, so I think I'm moving him down from average to bad. Next up, let's take Terax and move him down to good. So he got buffed a little bit ago, and I moved him up to God tier, but I feel like that was a little ambitious. He's not that great. I never see people using him really at all. I mean, he can inflict some nice armor breaks. He's got that cool rock field that he can do, but he still doesn't have as much damage as he should to be in the God tier category. Next up, another buff champion that we're moving down, Massacre down to good. So he's similar to Terax, I feel. He's got some decent damage if you throw the special 2 into the block, because you can do a lot of damage there, but he doesn't really have much utility at all. He can inflict some incinerate, which is nice, so that's good for masochism, but again, he's not the greatest champion. I think he just deserves that good ranking. So next, let's take Kang the Conqueror and move him up to good. So Kang, I sort of glossed over this, but he had this nice Horseman of Apocalypse. So if he's a Horseman of Apocalypse, pretty much, or even if it's just synergy, every 4 seconds you'll gain an indefinite fury, increasing your attack by 20%. And this, you can get 20 stacks of this fury. So that's some really nice, that's a lot extra damage. So that's really good, because if you can get him all the way up, he has a lot of damage, so he can actually put up some nice damage. So I feel like he's at least just a good champion. So, and now, finally, for the good category, we're going to be taking Wasp, who currently is in, I believe, average. Let's see, where is Wasp? Yeah, right here. So, Wasp, move her up to good. So, a lot of people mainly just use her to bring her along with Ghost. But I feel like Wasp, she's got some nice stuff she's going on. She has that cool sort of Doom mechanic. You can go medium, triple, light, heavy attack. And that will also, which is nice, and then it will also inflict a weakness. Her special 2 power stings the opponent, which is really nice. And then also, you can inflict a petrify if this power sting lasts its full duration. So I feel like she's got some nice utility, some pretty nice damage. So Wasp, I feel like she's just a good champion in the game, good addition. And then, especially if you got her on team with Wasp, can take those Ebony Maw fights. She's a good champion. She can do some damage. She can do some stuff when it's needed. So now I'm going to be taking War Machine and moving him down from Beyond God down to God. So War Machine, he's got some nice armor breaks. Special 2 will inflict a really thick armor break, and you can stack up to 2 of these. Heavy attacks will refresh them. Well, and then his special 3 gives him a Fury, and then also another Fury for every armor break on the opponent. So you can get some nice damage after the special 2, special 2, special 3. But his whole thing is, and it takes so long to do. Like, it's crazy how long it takes to throw 2 special 2s and then a special 3. And it's just such a long rotation. It takes so long to get into his damage. Got some nice utility. He's still a God tier champion, but I feel like he's not as good as the people in the Beyond God tier level above him. Next, we'll be taking Venom the Duck, moving him also down from Beyond God to God. So, also with this, Venom the Duck, I feel like he just takes so long to ramp up in a fight. And you can only, bang 3 of those buffs every fight. So it takes, a few fights. It takes probably, a good amount of fights to really build him up so that he can put up that nice damage early in the fight. And he doesn't have a ton of utility, again. He's got some, but it's nothing too crazy. So Venom the Duck, I feel like he's just too long of a ramp-up champion. There's not as much of a reward when playing him at his max ramp-up, so it's not that great. And he can only bank 10 total buffs, and that's not really anything. I mean, it can do some nice stuff, but if you get unlucky with buffs, and then the first 4 fights are just taking forever, so he's not the greatest champion. He's still pretty good. He's still a god-tier champion, but again, not as good as the people above him. Finally, I'm going to be moving Magic down to God. So Magic, she's queen of power control. She's got such insane power control, but she just doesn't have really anything else. I don't think she has any immunities. I'll just check that, but yeah. So she doesn't have much utility at all besides the power control. So yeah, she got that power control, which is a really good power control. But it's also reliant on a pretty aggressive AI. And she doesn't have any immunities at all. She's got that nice limbo mechanic, making her a great defender. But also, the thing is, she is not that great on offense unless you get lucky, and then you might take a few hits. But it's not the greatest thing ever. And then her specials again, she can nullify, which is nice. But then she'll power lock and then power steal off the special too. So she's still a really good champion, still a god tier champion. I feel like she just doesn't have anything besides the power control, which is insane. She doesn't have too much else, which is why she's just a god tier champion. So next up, people are going to get mad at me for this, but I'm going to be moving Aeon from overpowered down to beyond god. So my big problem with Aeon is, yes, I understand, 999 Aeon is an absolute cheat code. He's insane. He's going on unstoppable furies, combo shield, true accuracy, unblockable into the block, crazy damage. But main problem is, how do you get Aeon up to a 999 combo? So he's got a lot of utility, he's got a lot of damage, but all that is you need to build up to it. You need multiple fights to ramp him up. And he can't, it's not even like, at max sig, he can only carry over 75% of his combo. So, maybe the first fight always is such a painful fight. It takes forever, you're not doing any damage at all. And then the second fight, again, you're not doing as much damage. So it takes like 3, 4, 5 fights, even to get him into even to get him pretty usable. So he's still he's pretty good after that. When you get to a 500 combo, that's where you're seeing some nice damage, some nice utility, stuff like that. But it takes forever just to build up to a 500 hit combo. And also, his whole playstyle is, a lot of times you want to charge your heavy and then get hit. So part of his playstyle is getting hit. So that means you have to get hit. You have to take damage so he can put up the big damage. Which isn't really that great, because and main thing you're trying to do is you're trying to get through quests. Most people, you're not trying to get through quests as fast as possible. You're trying to get through quests with using the least amount of units. That's what most people are going for. You don't want to spend any units. You want to spend the least amount of units on quests. But his whole thing is you want to take damage, which means you probably need to use heals. And that's just units, more potions I need to just dump into this guy. Again, he's still insane. Bring him into Abyss, bring him into Labyrinth, Grandmaster's Gauntlet, maybe in the Shang-Chi Close Encounters quest. But his whole thing, if for those long quests, he's insane because you actually can ramp him up. But his problem is just how long it takes to ramp him up, how painful it is to ramp him up. And just, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he's still a Beyond God tier champion. He's probably like the second best champion for the Abyss. He's definitely the second best champion for the Abyss. First is obviously Quake, because she won't take any damage if you're good with her. But yeah, second best champion for the Abyss. Price, also, again, second, or maybe even best for Labyrinth, because in Labyrinth they'll get all that power gain. And so, he's still insane, but I feel like he just doesn't deserve that overpowered category, because outside of Abyss Labyrinth, you're not using him at anywhere else. You're not using him in Alliance 4, you're not using him in Alliance Quest, you're not using him in Act 6, Act 7, Act 5, anything like that, really. So I feel like he just deserves a Beyond God tier ranking. And then, next up, we are going to be taking Hela all the way from Beyond God to overpowered. Slap Odin on the team, and she is doing, honestly, it actually seems like it's the best damage in the game. If you can build up so many Furies, and people are doing over 1 million damage on a special 2 hit. Just building up so many Furies, that crazy armor break off the special 2. She's also got some nice utility. That immortality is nice when she's about to die. And she's got all those furies, which is nice. She can also inflict the armor break, which is cool. She's just a really insane champion. You don't even need Odin for her to be insane. If you're skilled at playing with her while charging the heavy, you can still get a bunch of furies and a bunch of damage without Odin. So I believe she deserves overpowered. And then finally, we are going to be taking Diablo, also up to overpowered. Diablo, his buff came out. I placed him on God. But ever since then, I've still been seeing just insane gameplay with Diablo. He's got so much regeneration, so much poison damage, so much utility. He's just like, every fight I see people playing with him, he's just ending at 100% health, full yellow bar. So he's got great nullify. If you select that specific potion, you nullify buffs just constantly. You don't even need to be really touching them. And then, like, I saw this guy solo champion boss, full yellow bar. People are using him in the Shang-Chi quest. He's just ending with full yellow bars. Just the regen is absolutely insane, this guy. He's just an absolutely crazy champion. I believe he deserves the overpowered category. And so, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And if you did enjoy it, please be sure to smash that like button. And also, if you want to see more Marvel Contest of Champions content like tier lists like these, be sure to subscribe down below with notifications on. And also, be sure to comment down below what you think I should change about this tier list. What champions are in the wrong category. I won't always change them by what you say, but I'll definitely hear what you have to say, and maybe I will change them. Maybe you think Stripe should only be in Beyond God. Maybe you think Red Guardian's overpowered. Tell me why, and I'll think about it for next month. But until next time, peace!